Being in a relationship that's locked in patterns of conflict can be exhausting. And even when we seek help through self-help books or maybe even couples counseling, sometimes it doesn't help. A lot of the help out there is focused on coping skills or tips and tricks oriented information. And having worked with couples for over 10 years now, I've come to believe that often tips and tricks don't get it done because relationships are complicated. I do think there's good news, though. I think that couples who succeed in sustaining their relationships and lowering the conflict levels tend to display certain habits when we can learn to lean into the 4 habits that I'm going to talk to you about today. It just gives us an opportunity to break that cycle of intense conflict so that we can find resolution and repair. And of the 4, I'm going to save what I think is the most powerful for the end. In fact, I often refer to it as the kryptonite of conflict. Habit number 1 is learning how to slow things down. I wonder if this has ever happened to you. Your partner says or does something that upsets you, and so you're angry, and you pop off, and then they take the bait, they respond in kind, then all of a sudden we're off and running into another cycle of conflict. If you've ever experienced this is what Dr. John Gottman refers to as a harsh startup. And he talks about that as being something that's very destructive and concerning in relationships. Now, what does slowing things down look like? Well, I think it starts with our own emotional regulation. Part of that is learning how to sit with our own emotions. And so if you're angry, I'm a believer that oftentimes anger has some other powerful emotions riding beneath it, whether it's pain or frustration or confusion or whatever. And so when we can sit with that anger, instead of engaging our partner right then, we can sometimes develop a clearer understanding of what's going on in ourselves. Also, emotional regulation involves being able to calm ourselves so that we can start using the part of the brain that makes good decisions instead of using the part of the brain that is just focused on fear and anger, the caveman part of the brain that's just there to fight the tiger or run away. When that part of the brain is driving the conversation, it's often not very productive. When we learn to slow down, we learn to sit with our own emotions and really figure out what's going on. The next part of slowing things down is that then we have to be patient sometimes, because just because we're ready to talk about something doesn't mean our partner is. And so whether our partner needs to calm down or we just want to approach them at a time when they have the bandwidth to have a meaningful conversation with you about it, slowing things down in all ways usually leads us to better territory. Habit number 2 is successful couples practice interdependency. Now, this is not codependency or just dependency. Those are often not productive in relationships. Interdependency works like this. Now, I'm generally a fan of the carry your own bags approach to relationships. I think each of us in a partnership is responsible for our own actions, our own words, our own emotions, and also maintaining our own physical and emotional well-being. But interdependency is what comes in the middle, or maybe it's the overlap, no matter how you think about it. Interdependency is agreed to, negotiated, consenting space where we just agree to help prop each other up in this journey through life. It's probably part of the reason that we partner in the first place. Help talk each other through a bad mood, or support them through a bad day, or maybe do the shopping or take care of the kids when the other one is just overwhelmed or doesn't feel well. These kinds of things live in interdependent space, and they are agreed to, sometimes explicitly, sometimes implicitly. But I think a lot of times when we run into trouble in a couple is when we're not really on the same page about what interdependency looks like, because then we feel like we are being asked for things that we're not able or not willing to give, can lead to resentment. And so sometimes couples, when they think in terms of interdependency, what are the ways that we're going to agree to support each other, to prop each other up, with the understanding that we fundamentally need to carry our own bags? This becomes a fairly healthy balance when done properly. Habit number 3 is using the language of emotion. It's inevitable that people in a partnership are going to say and do things that upset and hurt each other. That's just life. The problem is that our tendency is to talk about the thing that they said or did, which leaves them feeling often attacked and criticized, When they feel criticized, they tend to defend themselves. Now we're into Dr. Gottman's 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, the first 2 of which are criticism and defensiveness. When we're trying to lower the temperature in a relationship, this is usually not a good path for us to be on. So what do we do instead? Well, instead of talking about our criticisms or beliefs about what the other person has said or done, when we can learn to talk about our own emotion to begin with, some very different and important things tend to happen. To start with, if I lead a conversation with something like, hey partner, I'm frustrated and confused and I'd like to talk about it. Well, the first thing that happens is we have undercut conflict by talking about something that's inarguable. No one else knows what your feelings are but you. And so there's nothing to argue there to begin with. Second of all, and just as importantly, in a partnership, if one person is frustrated and confused, when the other person learns that, the natural tendency in a caring relationship is to then ask about that, to get curious. Oh, what's going on? Why are you upset? How can I help? Well, now we have a smooth on-ramp to talk about the thing that is concerning us. We avoid that harsh startup that Dr. Gottman talks about. And when we can talk about our own emotions, we get that smooth on-ramp. We have gotten our partner into a place of empathy. And then we can say, hey, I felt really confused because I thought we were going to meet up 2 hours ago. I was left hanging. What can we do? That is a very different start to a conversation than where the heck were you? Do you even care about this relationship? So when we can lead with emotion, it puts us into productive space and it often gives us a much better chance of resolving our concerns. Habit number 4 is probably the most complicated of the habits that I'm talking about today, and it probably relies to some extent on the first 3. But I also think it's the most powerful. In fact, I call habit number 4 the kryptonite of conflict. The better we are at habit number 4, the harder it is for cycles of divisive anger and conflict to take hold in a relationship, the more it's a protective feature in our relationships. Habit number 4 is the use of empathy and compassion, which leads to connection. So empathy is the attunement to the experience of the other. What's it like to be you right now? Compassion, there's lots of ways to understand compassion, but for our purposes, of course, there's the desire to alleviate suffering. But I think an important part of compassion in a relational context is the ability and willingness to hold space for someone else when they're not at their best. When you can still be with your partner in some kind of an accepting way when they're angry or upset or hurting, then it creates a kind of acceptance there that it's hard to duplicate. When we have empathy and compassion in our relationship, when those really take hold, we build a deep connection that it's really hard to undermine. And so empathy and compassion and connection are the kryptonite of conflict. The more we can do these things, the more hopefully it will help your relationship survive and thrive. Hey friends, thank you for the gift of your time and attention today. I'm always grateful for those things. If you would please do like and share this video and subscribe to the channel. That helps us out quite a bit. If there are other things you'd like me to talk about or drill down on from this video, please do leave comments below. And until next time, be well.